There's a fairly recent quote that goes, "Don't underestimate Joe's ability to fuck things up," referring to Joe Biden. That quote was said by Barack Obama. And I think that speaks truth, but I think ultimately in this situation with Afghanistan, it's ultimately irrelevant to what's going on. I think far more relevant would be something like this. Never underestimate a government's ability, readiness, nor willingness to sacrifice their own people, men, women, and children, to advance their own agenda. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the Sunder the Sky podcast. I am your host, Christopher Sky Sunderer, coming to you from my fortified bunker deep beneath the streets of Kent, Ohio, in the People's Republic of America, the once and future United States of America. It is 8:11 p.m., Monday, August 23rd, 2021. This is going to be a very short thing. I just wanted to pop on and float something to you, my listeners. So I've been following up, reading up, digesting as much what can loosely be described as news for the last few days. And I have to say, I'm starting to think the screw-up in the Afghanistan withdrawal was intentional. And by starting to think, I mean I am all but convinced. For lots of reasons. I think it facilitates a lot of things for the deep state and the globalist elites in general. And I just want to float this to you. This is all hypothetical. Actually, it's rapidly becoming theoretical. You know, a theory is a hypothesis with evidence to support it that's outside the margin for error, and I think we crossed that Rubicon a few days ago. So consider this, if you would. First, this whole thing, this hasty pullout from Afghanistan, has now moved us toward supplanting Biden with Harris. Okay, so of course, we all knew that was coming at some point. Everyone has been saying that. Biden will not finish this term as president. I mean, God, as soon as Biden was nominated, we knew, well, if they get him in, it's just going to be as a shoehorn to get somebody else into the Oval Office. And whoever his vice presidential pick, whoever his running mate ends up being, I should say whomever, is who the deep state really wants as president, right? And once quote unquote he'd picked Kamala Harris, we knew who it was. I mean, the idea that he would have picked Kamala Harris, the woman who literally called him a racist, a sexist, and a rapist. She literally accused him of being a repeat rapist on the debate stage. I mean, that clearly was not his pick. Obviously, they wanted Kamala Harris, okay? And as my friend Justin pointed out on his podcast, The Inconclusive Breakdown, just yesterday, Afghanistan has the largest reserves of lithium known to exist on planet Earth. The largest natural reserves. Now, Afghanistan, that entire region, and Afghanistan in particular, is very rich with what are called REEs, R-E-Es, rare earth elements, of which lithium is a particularly important one these days. Lithium is the primary component. It's the capacitance material used in batteries. Okay, in lithium batteries. And electric vehicles use lithium batteries exclusively. The unrest now in Afghanistan, the unrest in the region now puts China in position to end up controlling the country's supply of lithium. Now, I will read to you an article. This is from the International Business Times. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This was published today, just a few minutes ago, As I'm reading this, it is 8:16 p.m. This was published at 8. Okay, so I literally just saw this, and that's when I decided to record this episode, okay? The headline, Biden lets China grab the world's biggest lithium deposits with botched Afghanistan exit. Article by Marvi Basilan. Afghanistan has rare earths valued between $1 trillion and $3 trillion. Jesus. Afghanistan has the world's largest reserves of lithium. Some experts believe China will try to grab Afghan's rare earth reserves through an alliance with the Taliban. China said its embassy in Kabul remains in full operation. As we all know, the Afghan capital was seized by the Taliban over the weekend. Quoting, the immediate consequences of U.S. President Joe Biden's botched exit from Afghanistan may be just political, but its economic impact will ripple across several advanced industries in the years to come. Biden may have just gifted China an opportunity to grab Afghanistan's considerable reserves of rare earth metals, including the world's largest lithium deposits, and cement its domination of the market for these crucial minerals. Director of Emerging Market Debt at asset management firm Alliance Bernstein, Shamila Khan, told CNBC's Squawk Box Asia that minerals in Afghanistan, quote, can be exploited, end quote, and with the Taliban now in control of those valuable resources, it is a very dangerous proposition for the world. Khan added that at this point the international community should watch China closely if it seeks to become allies with the Taliban after the militant group captured Kabul on Sunday. So that's where we are, guys. Okay, so I want to, keep that factored in. I'm experiencing some allergy trouble. I was outside a lot today, so that's why my voice is a little bit raspy and crackling. Just bear with me, okay? I want you to remember and reflect on the fact that the Biden regime has been moving aggressively since taking office to force everyone in America onto electric vehicles since Jump Street, right? They want to replace the entire federal fleet, that's every federal vehicle, with electrics. And now China is going to control the world's supply of lithium. Think about that. Your government is going to make a serious attempt to force everyone to switch to electric vehicles, and China is going to control the battery supply. Next thing I want you to consider, ham-fisted a method as it would be, or would have been to accomplish this, the fuck-up in Afghanistan also succeeds in arming a new source of global terror threat and overseas unrest for our military to have to police. This thing where Biden left almost $1 trillion in Black Hawk helicopters and weapons and other vehicles. It wasn't just Black Hawks. Okay, there were Humvees, there were half tracks, there were all kinds of things, right? And as far as I know, there were Sherman tanks. It's not the first time that we've armed enemies, is it? It's just the first time it's been seen as a whoops. This has been the way of U.S. presidents since Bush Sr., and some could argue, I think could make strong arguments, Reagan did this too. Reagan did a lot of good things, and Reagan did a lot of bad things, okay? I'm on the fence about Reagan in a lot of ways. I think Trump is a better president than Reagan was. I really do. That's a conversation for another episode, I guess, okay? But here's the thing. The reason Reagan is so hailed and remembered is it was the first time that actual conservative values had been represented in the Oval Office in forever. And remember, they treated Reagan very much the way they treated Trump. Even the Republicans tried to stop Reagan from running in the first place. Once he was running for the nomination, the entire Republican Party resisted him, tried to shut him down. They fought him at every step of the way, just like they did to Trump. The only difference is with Trump, they kept fighting him. You might want to think about why, okay, and why there was that difference. Why did they support Reagan where they didn't support Trump? It's worth considering, is all I'm saying, on both sides. But this has been the way of U.S. presidents since Bush Sr. at least, okay? Step one, you ally with someone despicable. Iran, Saudi Arabia, whatever. Al-Qaeda, okay? We at one point saw Osama bin Laden as an ally of the United States. Step two, you arm that ally, that despicable ally, to the teeth. Step three, you have a falling out with that ally. Suddenly you realize what a despicable people they are. Now they're a well-armed threat that has to be dealt with. Step four, you declare war. Now, you may not do this officially. Declare war officially if necessary, but really, anymore you don't need to officially declare war. You can go right around Congress. It's always been the case that the Marines answer only to the president. The president can send in the Marines without having to ask permission from Congress. But for the last 30 years, the last time we actually had an official declaration of war was what? Desert Storm? So it's not really necessary to officially declare war, but I'm saying you and I both know when war has been declared unofficially, right? So that's step four. Step five, you use said military actions to raise taxes, appropriate funds, print money, spread around lucrative contracts to large campaign donors in the military-industrial contracts. You feed all of your corporate donors, right? Step six, rinse, repeat. Well, this has been the way it's been from presidency to presidency to presidency, administration after administration. Somebody allies with somebody despicable because, there's something we got to get done, and we arm them to the teeth, train them, and then, no, guess what? They're really villains. We've got a dragon to slay, right? So now there's this reason for us to be over there hunting these people that are damn near impossible to ferret out of this population, where they just disappear into the populace, right? They look like everybody else. You're in their neighborhood, for God's sake. It's impossible. These wars are impossible. Well, something happened that the deep state, the global elites were not counting on in 2016. Along comes this guy who's not a politician, and he gets so many fucking votes that even their rigged election fails. It wasn't rigged enough to overcome his landslide. Trump won in a landslide in 2016. I've been saying that since election night 2016. And everybody said, it wasn't a landslide. He barely won. No. He wouldn't have won at all if it hadn't have been a landslide. I'm talking about the real results of the vote. Not the public results. Not the results we were allowed to see on the news. The quote-unquote news. I'm talking about what really must have happened that night. Anyway, Trump was an interruption to the war machine. Trump smashed Al-Qaeda. Trump destroyed ISIS. He cut the head off the snake, Soleimani, and starved out their supply of munitions, intelligence, everything. He actually had people over there scared of joining those groups. And he didn't declare any new wars. He didn't start anything new. First president in modern history that didn't start any new fights with anybody. He was just getting us out of all this shit. Stuff that cannot be won. We absolutely needed to get out of Afghanistan. Okay? Biden had an address yesterday where he's like, I don't think you people realize that this was the right decision to pull out. My God. That's not what anybody's saying. Yes, we agree it was the right decision to get out. We agreed with the decision when Trump made it. It wasn't your decision to leave Afghanistan. What we have a problem with is the way you left. With how you left 15,000 plus innocent civilian Americans trapped behind enemy lines. And some unknown number, 65 to 75,000 Afghan allies of ours trapped behind enemy lines, now subject to this Taliban-conducted genocide. They're finding any pretext to just cap people in the street. They're going after Christians. They're going after women. They're going after people listening to American music. Because Trump cut the head off the snake, shut this shit down, ended these wars, stopped finding new wars, stopped setting up new wars for the next administration, like is the job of a president to set up new wars for the next administration, right? Because he didn't do any of that, there was no boogeyman set up for whoever the next president was going to be, no dragon to slay. All right, so leaving nearly $1 trillion in vehicles, weapons, and surveillance tech out for the Taliban to quote-unquote find as they swept into our hastily vacated positions in Kabul is a pretty effective way to catch up on steps 1 through 3, don't you think? You know, to make up for the steps that Trump didn't do in the war machine. Now we're at step 4 again. Shazam, we're right back to step 4, right back where we should be. We're all caught up on where we would have been if the 2016 steal had gone through as planned and we'd had a Hillary Clinton administration to keep the war machinery turning like business as usual in Washington. Makes sense, doesn't it? Biden is now positioned to be moved aside with bipartisan support, and now we'll have a quote-unquote president that you'll be sexist for disagreeing with or challenging in any way. Actually, it'll be a twofer. Since everyone considers this lady who is not black to be black, you'll also be a racist. Even though her family owned slaves, you'll be a sexist and a racist for disagreeing with her or challenging her in any way. And the flow of blood money will be restored. The serpents will have ended their long, Trump-induced fast. The drought will be over for the great big leeches, for the ticks. I really think that's what's going on. And I wanted to run that by you guys. Something to consider, kind of a framework perspective, if you will, to keep in mind as you watch events unfold. You know, as I sit here in the bunker, at my desk, my setup all in front of me, looking at the mic, next to me, I have my King James Bible. It's always right here. And I just like the King James. I you know, there are a lot of versions. I really think you want to read as many versions as you can because, you know, it's not actually true, you know, about things being lost in the translation because it's been translated again and again and again. No, like the New Testament, for one, was originally written in Greek. I'm going off on a tangent, I apologize. But I see it as it's starting this time. So anyway, the New Testament was originally written in Greek, and Greek is not so very far divorced from English. Greek is one of the two main source languages of English. So you're not losing a lot. Between Greek and Latin, you know, it practically is English. Now, the Old Testament, that's trickier, because you've got some being written in Aramaic, some being written in Hebrew, and some in Greek, an older form of Greek. Anyway, the more this stuff happens, the more I'm like, you know what? I almost don't even need to look at the news to know what they're doing and to know what they're gonna do. Like, I don't know the specifics, but I could have told you. Like, we all knew this was coming, we just didn't know the specific form it would take. We didn't know specifically that it would be a botched, quote-unquote, botched pullout of Afghanistan that would facilitate moving China into a dominant market position to control energy in the U.S. We didn't know that, but we knew that's what the Biden administration was. How long have we been calling him Beijing Biden or China Joe? I guess what I'm saying is we know what they want. And we know, in general, how they're going to go about trying to get it, right? So, I guess I'm saying that things in the Bible that are like prophecy, you start to understand a little more how, you know, the enemy has always had one goal in mind, pursuing one agenda down through the ages. And it's kind of like, you know, dealing with vermin or... that's a good example, vermin. You know where your foodstuffs are, you know what the rats want. And if you know how the rats think, you can kind of guess. And in this symbolic imagery of, like, the Book of Revelation, you know, it's easy to see how early prophets, just understanding how the enemy thinks, the nature of the beast, and what it is the enemy wants, you know, to bring about chaos and people consumed with selfishness and faithlessness, worshiping the creation instead of the creator. Things start to line up in your sight, and things that you're seeing unfold on the world stage start to make more sense. And I look at this stuff in Afghanistan now, and I don't see an accident. I don't see incompetence. Incompetence is kind of what is being shown to us. And your first indicator of that is how mainstream news outlets are calling it out as incompetence. If CNN and MSNPC are saying it, it's not true. Right, that's your first clue that you're hearing a lie, is if they're saying it. So if they're saying, well, it looks like Joe Biden is showing clear signs of incompetence, cognitive decline. Yeah, we've been saying that for 8 fucking years, jackasses. He's a puppet. And they picked a puppet that everybody knows is an incompetent buffoon for a reason. So they could hang the buffoon label on him as an easy way to justify really obvious ham-fisted moves like this. And as a way to conveniently get him out of the way. We all saw this coming. I'm just urging you not to forget what you already know, what you have known and realized for 2 years now. We all knew this was coming. Everybody knows. Whenever Joe Biden shows any sign of cognitive decline, we're just waiting for it. You know, oh, here comes Kamala. Here comes President Harris. Right? We're all waiting for it. Joe Biden himself has referred to her as President Harris numerous times. So that's it. That's it for today, guys. Just wanted to put that bee in your bonnet, so to speak. Back soon. Thanks.
He's not gonna come back. Nobody's that stupid.
When you understand the nature of a thing, you know what it's capable of.